This man was out in Vegas announcing the Ravens' third-round pick on Friday night. I didn't know if he was going to maybe try to ham it up, do any shtick. I think he did the right thing, playing it cool. He's on a show perhaps you've heard of. It's on HBO. It's called We Own This City. He is our buddy, Mr. Josh Charles, and he's back with us now here on GCR. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Glenn, how are you, my man? You good?
Everything's good, man. What about you? What's going on in your world?
It's good, man. I'm glad you said that because I did a little Q&A on the plane, just bored, killing time on the plane while the guy coughed next to me. The entire flight. And I said, what do you think? What do you guys think I should do when I get up there? And a lot of people are like, do a Baltimore accent, do this, do that. And I thought about it, and I ran it by some people. But I thought, you know what? Even though at that point in the third round, the players aren't there, it's still somebody's moment.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
I didn't want to make it like a big joke or anything like that. I didn't want to go. So I don't know, try to do it straightforward and have some fun. It was cool. I mean, to be frank, as a fan, I think the drafts can be kind of, other than the fourth round, they can be kind of boring. You're there for a while and it's going, but the fourth round was super exciting just to have that many picks. And Vegas,
Yeah.
the NFL and Vegas are made for each other.
Right.
The Super Bowl there in 2 years will be perfect. It's a perfect mix of everything, And for me, 2 days and I'm ready to get out of that town.
Well, okay, we agree on that, and it's going to be a nightmare for me if I don't get out of that town within 2 days. When I lived out in Arizona, it was a real problem because it was a nice weekend trip. Okay, two questions I have. Did you get to keep the card?
I kept the card, and I immediately emailed the Ravens, said that I want to give this to
Travis.
Yeah, to Travis Jones, and I said, just if you want to give me his address or whatever, I want to he may want it as a souvenir.
That's cool.
It. And they said, best way to do it is next time you're in Baltimore when they're here practicing, just come down and give it to them yourself.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. That'll be neat. That'll be really neat. That's a very cool thing. And then how nervous were you about the pronunciation of whatever name you were going to get? Like, were you happy that you didn't get a Jabo the way that Matt Stover did? Was that something that you were thinking about at all in the leading up to this?
Well, the Jabo would have been easy. I was more worried about the really long one.
Oh, like Fa'alele, right.
Yeah, or something really like, So, I was nervous about that. In fact, they pulled a practical joke on me backstage and handed me a card with one of those names on it and said, so here you go. This is your – because I said I was nervous about that. And they go, oh, okay, wait, have you seen your pick yet? Because I think I have it. And I was like, oh, okay. And they handed it to me. And sure enough, it was – I go, are you kidding? Is this a bit? And they're like, no, I just haven't put the Ravens on it yet. And I was like, oh, I started getting into a deep sweat. And then they just all bust out laughing, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one that got that day with it. But it was pretty good.
That's
awesome.
I was
like, yeah, Travis Jones I can handle.
Yeah, that's not too difficult. That's not too difficult. Well, it's a cool experience. Like, I get that it's not, you didn't win the Super Bowl or anything like that, but it's a cool experience. Not everybody's going to get the opportunity to win.
It was a very cool experience. I felt really honored they asked me to do it. And, I'm a live and breathe Ravens and Orioles. And so just like you, and I kind of was – I was touched by it. I was like, how could I pass this up? Wife and I used it as a chance to go and just have a couple days together. And the weather was beautiful. We saw some friends. And it was great.
It's awesome.
Really great.
That's awesome. I was really happy for you when I found that out. I was like, that's a really cool thing. That's a really cool thing to get to do.
It was cool. And a great draft, by the way. I really feel very happy about the draft. And the picks we made, and it'll be interesting to see how all those fourth rounders pan out. Reading all the stuff I've been reading about it, the Peter King behind the scenes stuff was very interesting. But I just think the Ravens are damn good at what they do. They make some good picks, and things seem to fall to them, and they don't panic. And I had a tremendous sense of pride as a fan, because everybody there was like, oh my God, dude, the Ravens. God, other teams are so pissed.
That's cool.
So pissed.
That's cool.
Your owner, your GM, makes such great picks. And I know it takes a little while to tell, but I think the Hamilton and Linderbaum was an incredible start to the draft, and pretty wild.
Josh Charles is with us. By the way, sometimes when those people bring that up, you have to like, hey, I'm an Orioles fan too. It's not like like I do have some suffering in my life. I have some of that.
I know, man. I've got suffering in my life, and and I thought, here's the other thing. I thought the Ajabo pick was.
Oh, I agree.
I actually called that before. I thought that was really cool because I know he's coming off the Achilles, but I think it's really great value there. And I just had that feeling with McDonald. I was like, I said backstage, I was like, I bet you they're going to take Ajabo. And they did. I was excited.
So let's talk about what they did, because you and I talked briefly on Twitter. I agree. I think they made great picks. I really like the picks. But Josh, what I struggle with is there ever a time?
Rusher.
Right. Is there ever a time to think about, hey, as much as this theory has worked and has kept the Ravens relevant for decades, is there ever a time to start thinking about need? Is there ever a time to start saying, hey, we need to zero in on what's best for winning a Super Bowl this year? And, I like Ajabo a lot, but I don't think he's going to be a factor this year. And they've got one qualified NFL receiver on the roster at the moment, and even that's a guy that, as much as we all love, and I'm over the moon about Rashad Bateman's talent, we do have to acknowledge, he hasn't done it yet in the NFL. So it's just a difficult juxtaposition for me of thinking they did a great job in the draft, but knowing you don't get to throw parades for drafting really well.
I agree. I agree that I've heard that. You're not the only person saying that. I definitely feel like that was a consensus I've been reading, and I was immediately checking back in to see what the vibe was from fans in Baltimore, and I heard a lot of frustration about that. But I also think we don't play next week. You know what I mean? We've got some time, and I think this team has shown historically they're willing to make moves, and I think we improved our offensive line tremendously between the Moses signing and Linderbaum, right? I think, the plan is for guys to get healthy. I think, they're seeing Bateman closer up than we are, and we feel good about him that he can make that turn. Yes, he hasn't done it, but I think they have a lot of confidence in that. And I think with all the tight ends, it's going to be interesting to see which way the offense goes this year. We need an extra pass rusher. We need, another receiver.
Yep.
I think when you read that King thing, you saw they were going to take that kid in the 4th round, and the Steelers,
Yeah, it's Calvin Austin, right?
Grab him one pick before. So I think like Eric said, I don't think it was like lack of, trying. It was just like, I don't know. I think the board fell to them in a way. Like they were giddy with getting Hamilton. And the trade. We haven't even talked about the Hollywood thing. What's the vibe there in Baltimore? How are people feeling about the Hollywood
It's so weird,
trade?
Josh, because the same people that were absurdly critical of Hollywood Brown, and they were insanely critical of Hollywood Brown. We had Torrey on last week, and Torrey was kind of going in on Ravens fans. And I know some of that's personal for him because he felt some of it when he was here, where he was very productive, and yet people wanted to run him out of town after the New England game because he didn't break up the interception, and all he ever does is get pass interference yards. So he's going in on Ravens. So those same fans that have been critical of Hollywood Brown were kind of losing their minds as this trade unfolded. And I sense that it's less about Hollywood Brown and more about the fact that, hey, this was the first time maybe in the history of the franchise that we really felt good about the wide receiver position. And now here we are a couple days later, and we're nervous about it again after we had felt so good about it. So I don't know how much of it was about Hollywood uniquely as much as it was about just the position as a whole.
I think that's interesting. I wouldn't agree that it's the first time we've ever felt good about wide receivers. I think we've definitely had some periods where we had some solid wide receivers.
I think when it was draft and develop guys, I guess specifically is.
I see what you mean. Yeah. No, totally. I think we saw him make those strides this year, and then it was kind of, to me, I saw it as like, a couple steps up, step back, couple steps up. It was. You kind of kept wondering, okay, is next year going to be the year that he turns it around, and really kind of goes to the next level. But when you talk to other people, it's like, you hear Steve Smith talking about it. He's showed flashes of brilliance, but he's a go route receiver. He's not going to step up, man to man and just sort of wear somebody the corner down. And so I think Bateman can be that guy. Bateman's got that right body size, right? That, to me, I feel like he could fall into that. But dude, it's weird. I thought I would feel worse about it because I seem to like Hollywood, and he seems like a really sweet guy. But I actually think it was a great move. I don't think the money that they're going to have to pay, at some point, whatever that is, Lamar. I think this was knowing that Hollywood wanted to be traded. I mean, they kept that under the wraps. I didn't know that. That was amazing to me. And he gets to play with his boy from college, right? And who I think is licking his wounds after the ending of his season, and wants some sort of comfort there with somebody that he feels familiar with. And I think it's good for both parties, honestly. I think we handled it really well. I'm happy with it.
I tend to agree with you. I think they did well in the trade. I think that there's a lot. I get nervous about the idea of who your second wide receiver is. That's it. You're right. There's time. I love the idea of trying to add in Jarvis Landry. He's not replacing Hollywood Brown, but I think he's still a very productive player that can help you at this point. I don't really.
Is that what people are talking about now, Glenn?
He's the best of what's there, Josh.
Right.
Otherwise, it's Julio Jones, and a year ago I was enamored with Julio Jones, and now I'm like, nope, I was wrong. I was so wrong about that.
I think it's. Look, I mean, I watched the press conference with Eric and Coach, and just saying that they feel really good about the guys they have, and. I know that's something they say,
Right.
You watch that, and I get it, but at the same time, it's like I do. I think Duvernay has potential. Prochet had some flashes last year. I think I don't know how Wallace kid. What's I don't know. How
Talon Wallace,
out,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean he was sort of more special teams, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't he doing more?
I mean he was barely even active.
Barely active. So I think I don't know. Let's see. If Rashad really, with that full season under his belt, playing catch with Lamar in the offseason, if he really makes that leap, can two of those other guys fill those other positions and step up there with Mark Andrews, these two young tight ends we just drafted? I don't know. I'm not as freaked out about it. I'm more concerned about the pass rush, to be honest.
I get it, and look, it's also a concern for me. It is. It's a concern for me, and I like Tyus Bowser and his role if he's healthy. I think we saw a lot to like about Odafe Oweh, but there's just a lot of hope that's involved with this conversation. There's a lot of.
I mean, I'm with you. You kind of look at it and you're not sure. It's like, is it going to pop this year, or is it like another year? You're going to get really excited about it. But I have confidence that these guys will fill in the pieces. Like we said, we're not playing next week, 2 weeks. We got time, and I think that was something Ozzie always did so brilliantly, and I think Eric does it as well. It's just not afraid to make a move when they need to, and put in the right pieces. So I'm willing to give them a little moment to see, where this heads in terms of the pass rush and the wide receiver of it all, and give them the benefit of the doubt.
He is Josh Charles. You have you've been watching him these last couple of Mondays on We Own This City on HBO. So you and I have talked about this. You getting to pull out the accent and play such an unrepentant asshole. I mean, just one of the great assholes in the history of television.
He's a Highlandtown asshole.
It's a very unique asshole, isn't it? Like, I am convinced, and I told you this when I first watched, that this had to be an utter joy for you in your career. And if you tell me I'm wrong, I appreciate the truth, but like
No. It was a joy. I wouldn't say it was a joy because of what an asshole the character was. I think in an odd way, in doing the research, there are times for me as an actor, whenever you play a character, and especially if you play characters that from the outside people would perceive as an asshole or, bad characters, villain characters, you're always trying to find, when you're playing them and getting into their shoes, they don't view themselves that way, so you have to you're looking for every little lock, every little key that can open up some of the humanity that you can find. And here, because he's a character you hear so much about, for a while, and then you sort of see him in sort of pieces here and there. A lot of the exposition was sort of done for the character and the backstory. And in the research I did, a lot of people that work with him, as brutal as he was, as many complaints as he had against him, historic complaints, and just trouncing on people's civil liberties. When you talk to people that work with him, there was a lot of interesting things that people would say that didn't really jive with with the perception that he was just a straight asshole, and some of it was that he had a kind of, people said he definitely had that edge to him, but that he also had a kind of odd charm. Like, if he was on your team and you liked him, he worked hard, and he could be very sarcastic and kind of have that sense of humor, but there was a sort of an odd charm to him. And when you watch a lot of the body cam footage, because he grew up in the neighborhood, he just, the way he interacts with certain people on the street, sometimes, you could feel a level of aggression underneath of it, sort of couched in this sort of faux kind of friendliness. But other times he was genuinely friendly with people on the street, and they knew him, because he grew up there and he'd been there for so long. And, there's this one, I tried to get it in the show. I can't remember what episode. It may be in there somewhere where it's his body cam footage, and it's his body cam footage, so you can't really see him. But he kind of goes out. They're getting a gun from a guy in like a liquor store, and he walks out while they're kind of handling the guy, and he sees these two ladies on the street, and they're talking him up, and they know him. And he's just like, "What's up, girl?" And he's talking to him. He's just like holding court with them in a way that they're asking him about his other partner. He's like, "Oh, yeah, no, that guy, he ain't here no more. No, he went over to another district. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm still here,
Oh.
And they're talking, and they're laughing, and they're like, "Boy, you too old now." And he's like, "Yeah, no, I know. And they're just going back and forth, these ladies. And there was something in there. I tried to put it in this one little section where these girls walk by while I'm walking to the car to search to search the car, and they look at me, and I just go like, "What's up, girl?" I'm just trying to throw it in there. But I think to your larger point, though, that is the sort of purpose he serves in this piece, right?
Right.
So on one level, it's not the Daniel Herschel story. If it was, maybe you fill out some of those things a little bit more. I think I was very aware of like what he represents for the story, and I get very excited about that. Trying to figure out what my role is and how it helps tell the narrative and the story. And so I think when you're dealing with such gifted writing that's so layered and has such depth and nuance and so many things coming together, I'll talk again about that exposition because it is kind of remarkable, in the episode that just aired last night, it kind of culminates in that, which is like the first episode and a half, you see Herschel in his element a little bit. You see his brutality. You see him be mean. And you keep hearing Nicole Steele as she's interviewing everybody. "Oh, Herschel, he's the guy. He's the poster child." And so then they wrote this amazing scene that wasn't in there when I originally signed on, but they added it. And it was
in the bar?
I think that ends the episode.
Yeah.
And so I was really happy about it because as an actor, you're always kind of, no actor wants to hold exposition. You never want to say it. You understand that it's needed sometimes, but no actor wants to have to give it, right? Particularly in television when you're sort of having to sort of hold exposition and be like, "Oh, God, this is frustrating to get out." So the idea that they could handle all of that exposition about the character and paint this portrait of him and even see it in glimpses and then get to see him in his element, where I don't want to say like he charmed her in any way, because obviously he didn't, but where you see him in his environment in a Highlandtown bar with people that he knows, people that like him, and he's watching sports and he's having chicken wings and he gets to express his point of view. And it's not a point of view that me, Josh, necessarily agrees with, or most people wouldn't. But it is one that's expressed by a lot of police officers, particularly around that time. And so that's the kind of beauty of this writing, is that they give everybody a voice, and they let you kind of have that point of view. And I think it's why The Wire sustains as well as it does. And I think this is why this is resonating. It just it can hold all of that, and that just makes it a richer experience. So I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed it just being home. I've been eager to film home for a while now, and to get to work with David and George and in the city that, raised me, and that feels very much a part of my identity. So I loved it. And I'll tell you this, we had the premiere up here. I couldn't make the New York, I couldn't make the Baltimore premiere because I'm filming a movie right now, and I was shooting that day, but the next day was the New York premiere, and we went, and afterwards I was super tired because I just worked the day before. I had to work the next morning. And we watched it, and I'm sort of, during the screening, I don't even watch because I'm just like working on my lines for the next day. And then afterwards, we all get on stage, do a talk back. A bunch of the actors, David, George, and Ray, the director. And it was, and D. Watkins sort of moderated it, and it was okay. I mean, it was just a lot of people, and I was tired, and I wanted to just go and have a bite to eat. But I will say this: like, there was a lot of interesting talk about the film. I mean, about the show. But then, I think Daryl and Rob Brown, they started talking about just how much they love Baltimore. And it kind of grew into this sort of love fest where
That's
even
cool.
David sort of chimed in as someone, I think he said, who is probably most accused of ruining Baltimore's reputation.
Right.
That everybody got to talk about, just really passionately about what a great city it is. How if you have a chance to go there, it's a beautiful city. It's a warm city. The people are amazing. And you have to spend time there. And it was just, I just was so happy because I'm normally the one that's saying that. And so the fact that I could just sit there and sort of bask in, this moment of just love and appreciation for Baltimore, that we can all know that this is maybe a painful story. Not maybe, it is a painful story.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
It's a story worth telling, and that there's also a lot of beautiful things about Baltimore too.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Josh Charles. I want to cover two more things with you if I could, because that was part of it, and I'll tell you, like my radio co-host Rita, she let on to me, and I did not know this. We had Justin on a couple weeks ago, and she said, I've never actually watched The Wire, and she said because it kind of hurts me. I know these stories. Like, I am Baltimore. I know I don't need it shoved back in my face. And I talked to her about it, and I was having this in-depth conversation about how what I kind of love is that, and I'm sure you probably have gotten it more than anybody else because you wear this city on your sleeve wherever you go. I'm sure people come up to you constantly. You're like, is Baltimore really just The Wire? Is that really what Baltimore is?
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's something that you thought about as well when you get involved in the project, but I love the idea of, hey, every city's got warts. Every city has problems, but I love the fact that Baltimore artists have been able to make incredible art exploring the warts of the city over the years. And that, in a way, it's not all Baltimoreans. You clearly are a prominent one, but many people involved in the project are from Baltimore, and it's filmed here. It's not I think a tribute to what the city is capable of. That art of this magnitude, arguably, The Wire being maybe the greatest television show in all time, and this is a wonderful series, being a Baltimore project. I think that's significant when we talk about this.
Yeah. I mean, I think both points of view are valid. I understand people feeling like they're too close to it. I think I experienced that filming it, in some of the neighborhoods where these things actually took place, and in some of the research and doing dialogues and seeing how people in the community have been affected. The ripple effect that it's still reverberating years later in these communities. What the police officers did in that task force. So you feel the sense of responsibility to it. I mean, I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, I remember doing a movie in France, and like everybody's like, "Oh, you're from Baltimore, The Wire,
right,
The Wire,"
right.
And it's like one can appreciate the genius of The Wire, and arguably the best television show of all time, but I think, I wouldn't speak for those guys. Obviously, I would never dare, but I think that, on some levels, it's a microcosm, that show, right? I mean, it is Baltimore, obviously very uniquely Baltimore, but it's also a microcosm of the cities in America.
Yes.
It's not unique to just Baltimore, a lot of the plight of what's happening.
Yes.
But Baltimore does have its own specific, unique issues, and I think, David and George know it well. And I think the issue here was that, they're trying to sort of, I mean, I think they said, in a couple interviews we were all doing together, that this is like a coda, to The Wire, that a lot of these characters that are cops today, they weren't cops when they finished writing The Wire, This is the next generation. This is the sort of result of the bad decisions that a police department can make over time. And then here's what you get, right? And I think that's, look, it's not made up, So sometimes, it's part of what I think art, aspires to be, hold up that mirror, show people what's going on, and hope that, it resonates with people, and can, prevent stuff like this from happening again.
I completely agree.
I don't know that that'll happen.
No,
but
unfortunately,
I hope,
This is I was going to say this is America, and did we get a lesson about that in the last 24 hours?
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Don't get me started.
I know it's a topic for a different day. Josh, the other one, I want to go back to the accent because this is, I almost worry for you, man, that like this is going to be like when a band has a song that like my buddy Jimmy Haha from Jimmy's Chicken Shack can't go a day in his life without somebody asking him to play Do Right, right? Like it's just sort of the way that it goes. Did you have, when you were young, did you have an accent at all? And I asked that because I didn't think I did. I moved out to Phoenix, and I remember a program director pulling me aside on day one when I got to Phoenix and being like, "Hey, what are we going to do about your accent?" And I was like, "What are you talking
No,
about?"
I totally had one, Glenn. I mean, there's tapes of me when Jimmy Carter was president. I have a tape of me reading my first book, and I was just like, "See Jack run up the hill." Jack and Jill run up the hill, you know, and then my dad's like, "Who's your favorite quarterback?" And I'm like, "Bert James," you know. So no, I mean, I absolutely had it, but I think like a lot of people, and I'm told that it still comes out maybe when I'm had a couple cocktails or you know, I'm feeling a little loose. But by and large, I moved away from Baltimore really young. I went to New York, started acting young. New York, lived in L.A. And it's a kind of accent that I think you can just, you know, playing different parts and get more conscious of my voice. And so, you know, don't feel like I have, but it's always there. It's inside of me. You know, what was interesting about it was, you know, Herschel is the one character of the Gun Trace Task Force who's actually from Baltimore proper, right?
Yep.
From Highlandtown. And that was very important to me when I accepted the role, that I wanted to make sure that, you know, even if it's not clear in the sort of words, that we just make that clear into sort of how he presents himself and his sort of how comfortable he is and how he speaks. And so, yeah, and it's also an accent that, you know, you try to find that balance of, right? Because I know where it can become a caricature, you know, and you want to sort of find that moment because it's not a comedy. You don't want the voice to be sort of so in the way that it's sort of overpowering anything. And I was nervous about it because I felt a tremendous sense of responsibility. Well, fuck, you know, I'm from here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'm playing this real guy in this real story, and this is my city. And, you know, I have my reputation on the line. Like, I got to deliver now. And I got nervous, you know, and I called a very well-respected dialect coach that I work with. And I said, look, I know I have this voice, but I'm just nervous. Do you mind if I just read some scenes with you and go over a couple things? You just tell me if I'm in the right direction, you know? And she did, you know, and she said, yeah, of course, you know, and I said, listen, I feel confident about it, but I just want to, I need to bounce it off someone. I need to hear, you know, and I worked with her for an hour, and she was like, you're good. You know what I mean? Just relax. You have it.
Yeah.
You're where I want people to be when, after I've worked with them for months. Like, this is in your bones. You have it. Just relax and just let it be and let it fly. And so that's what I did. And, yeah, it was truly like something I've always wanted to do. So it was, and wanted it to be kind of specific to the character I was playing, because I got to listen to a lot in the research of his voice constantly, you know, and all the body cam footage. It was a lot of what I did was just walk around New York City and listening to him. And his voice is kind of high in a little bit, you know, for someone who's so brutal, you know, and it has that quality about him. He also had a kind of high, goofy voice, you know, and was kind of, you know, his register was kind of up here.
Right,
you know?
right.
All right, sir.
Right.
You know, and that was kind of fun to play with the sort of juxtaposition of that. I found that really interesting, you know, the sort of the duality of that. So that was fun to play with. And, yeah, I saw this tweet came out. I think, as Dave said, it was my favorite thing I've ever read. There was a guy said, you know, there's many great things to dig about, you know, the city, not the least of which is that, you know, Josh Charles gets to be put in the Regional Accent Hall of Fame.
Correct.
And I was like, I'm done. I'm done.
Dude,
that's it.
That's
a wrap. I'm finished. That's all I needed. I literally wrote, I think I quote tweeted, it was like the greatest thing anyone's ever said about me, and I'm done. That's a wrap.
What else can you do? What else could you possibly do? As a Baltimorean.
I mean, that's all I care about.
Correct. 100%. Brother, the show's so good, man. It is so bloody good. And
you're good, man. You're good. I love getting on here and chatting with you. And, it's always fun, man. You're great. You're one of the great guys. So
I truly appreciate you. It means a lot to me, your friendship over the years, my friend, and I'm so happy for
absolutely.
you. Hey, dude.
Thanks, buddy.
We'll talk soon,
We'll
all
talk
right?
soon.
Thanks, pal.
Okay. See you later, bud. Bye.
Josh Charles.